this discussion is Patricia Ratamangi. She is the VP Global Communications at Nielsen. She oversees Nielsen's internal and external communications focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is responsible for proactive external communications around Nielsen's insights on diverse audiences, such as the Diverse Intelligence series. Patricia will introduce our panelists, but please welcome to the stage, Patricia.
Hi, everyone. Can I welcome the panelists to the stage, please? Come on up, you all. Thank you for joining us. And how many of you are gamers? How many of you are curious about gaming? All right, we got the right audience here. All right. And if you know other people who are out there and aren't here, text them, okay? All right. So we've got a terrific lineup of panelists here today, and I'm really excited to be here and a part of this. As was mentioned earlier, I'm part of Nielsen. We do media and audience as well as content measurement, including gaming as one of the media platforms where we know people connect, people celebrate, and people are seen and want to be seen. So first of all, let me go down the line here. We have to my right, Wilson Tang, who is CEO and Chief Designer of Yumibao. Wilson is an artist, designer, and entrepreneur who's been at the forefront of digital media for the last 20 plus years. He's a self-proclaimed OG. And he's been part of Electronic Arts, Industrial Light and Magic, and the mobile game studio Kabam Vancouver. And he's currently founder and CEO of Yumibao, as I mentioned. Welcome, Wilson.
Thank you.
And then next we have Tara Mustafa, who is the CEO and founder of Code Coven. I'm sorry, I'm tripping up. And she is an award-winning seasoned game designer, and her experience is amazing. I'm fangirling here. She's worked with studios such as Microsoft, EA. She founded Code Coven in 2018, and her goal is making careers in the games industry achievable and nurturing for marginalized communities. Welcome, Tara. And to her right is Karina Kom, game director of Mix Mob. She's the game director of a blockchain game company, and she'll tell you a bit more about this because I don't know what that was. She has 15 plus years of experience, and again, tremendous names like EA and Microsoft. But she's also stands at the center of two nonprofits where she's driven by her belief in innovation and proudly represents people who are unseen, such as LGBTQ and Asian females. Thank you for being here, Karina. Certainly not least is Josh Wilson, co-founder and general manager of Eastside Games. He's a Metis man from northern BC, has led Eastside Games now as a founder for the past 12 years. And he was recently named Person of the Year as part of BC Tech's Technology Impact Awards and as a member of the BC Innovators Hall of Fame. Go, Josh. All right. So let me just get started here with my esteemed panelists. So gaming, it's come a long way, right? From Nintendo console games or even the arcade, I'm wearing my Galaga B shirt here, to being a place where people can come together to raid with each other, right? And it's transcreating culture in more mainstream media, like you're seeing a lot more crossovers into cable, into streaming platforms. And not to mention that it's already starting and maybe has been going on for a while, piquing the interest of brands and marketers, such as Amazon buying over Twitch. Who knew that would happen? Sponsorship of esports. Ray talked a bit about that this morning. And influence of the gaming gurus like FaZe Rain. And that's not just gamers for gamers, but also gamers for the rest of the market. So speaking about Asians in particular, there is an over-index of Asians, right? 78% more likely than the average person to be interested in gaming and esports. So it's definitely a place where Asians are leading, where Asians want to be. Let me just touch on this a little bit more with each of our panelists here. You'd come from a very vast variety of experiences. So what's the current state in your areas, and what are some of the challenges and wins you've seen recently? So let me start with Karina.
Testing. Great question. So challenges for blockchain, it's not a easy thing to get into. There's a high barrier to entry. There's generally a lack of awareness of how a blockchain works or how to get a wallet, what a Bitcoin is. That certainly presses downwards on the kinds of representation you might see in our industry for blockchain. However, I will say, in terms of game studios, it's pretty much on par. We might serve less female Asian demographic in blockchain than you would normally see in traditional game studios. But in terms of development and what I see in representation, it's on par.
That's a really great perspective. Tara, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so through Code Coven, I get to sort of have an eye on all different facets of the games industry because we're trying to solve the diversity pipeline from beginning to end. And I think one of the challenges is that there's still such a stigma around gaming and being a gamer. I had once did a talk and I said to an audience of about 500 people who identify as women, how many of you identify as gamers? Like 10% maybe put up their hand, but they all had a version of New York Times crossword or, what else? The Kim Kardashian game or some other game that doesn't have the label of game or being a gamer because there's such a stigma around it. So they didn't realize that they're actually one of the most powerful money investors into the gaming industry. And then they're not seeing the representation in the developers who are making those games. So I think there's a huge education piece about how great the games industry can be and how many different avenues for creation, for jobs, for potential that there is.
That's definitely one thing I love about this. And as you saw from the quick poll we took, right, that's something that this audience should really be tweeting out there and using as something that you can share with people who are within your networks. Josh, you've been a powerful force for good within this industry. Tell us what your experience has been.
And I don't think I've ever had that word described, but you powerful force for evil. I hate the term gamer. I think it's like saying I'm a fooder because I eat food or a waterer because I like to drink water to maintain life. Everyone's a gamer. We all have these really high-powered devices in our pockets or are near us that can play games at a level that's we've never experienced before. So what a challenge or what interests me right now about the market is being able to make games for different groups of people that have never had a game speak to them before. And I think that's an amazing opportunity. As much as right now everyone's feeling the crunch of doing business in these times, there's still millions and millions of people. Everyone has smartphones or has close access to a tablet that they can play a game on, and you could make those games. And that's one of our things that we've been looking at to make games for example, RuPaul Drag Race Superstar. There was never a game made like that, and we took that challenge on, and it's an explosive hit. So we're looking at making games for other groups or types of people that want to have a game that it doesn't just have to be more of the same. We'll still have the other games. Whenever I say this, people panic and think you're only going to have drag race games for all your games. It's going to be like Netflix or streaming that there's a streaming platform for everyone. There's content for everyone. That's the same with games.
That's a perfect segue to my next question, actually. And yeah, it's not just Twitch anymore, right? So Netflix started streaming esports last year, for example. And adults 18 plus who enjoy playing games also say 40% of them say that watching movies is their favorite form of entertainment, in addition to gaming itself, right? And Wilson, I know you're the OG, you've seen this evolution. Tell us what you think about this convergence.
I am the OG. I think the convergence is kind of behind the computer as well. If you look at Vancouver, and I do live here in Vancouver, and I've seen the rise of the animation studios, the VFX business, as well as the game business over the last 20, 25 years. I did a count. I think as of 3 years ago, there was 30 studios, that was game studios and animation studios and VFX studios within 10-kilometer radius. So I kind of see this as an amazing concentration of talent and, human potential, right? So I think for me, the convergence is not just, games are made into films and films are, based on games. Like that's just the IP convergence. I think there's a convergence of talent right here in the Pacific Northwest, and I think we're gonna, we need to take advantage of that. So that's kind of my point of view.
That's great. Karina, when we were, before we come up on stage just now, you were talking a little more about your experience in different conferences like this, that this is an unusual experience. Is that the case?
Absolutely. At least in Vancouver, it's to find an Asian game developer is very rare. I would say maybe less than 5% in Vancouver. To find a female founder in Asia is also less than 3%. So to see this many people representing such a ethnic minority, and not widely represented in games either, in media. And, let's not even talk about trans people or biracial people of color. There's just not enough representation in general across gaming and entertainment. So to see all of these movers and shakers under one roof is truly awe-inspiring. I'm so privileged to be here today.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And whew. So, and I hope that with the convergence, right, with IP, of the interest of studios, of the interest of streamers, speaking of which, I think there was some talk about The Last of Us as well. So Nielsen's audience data showed that when it came out, for the first 2 months, it was in the top 10 most watched streaming programs. And that tells us that it's not just gamers who are watching that, it's everybody. So we know this is happening. There's more convergence across platforms. We know that the generation that's coming up, Gen Z, who's increasing in buying power now, 200% more likely to game and be part of esports. And, what do you think this means for other media platforms or content creators or even brands? Do you want to start, Wilson?
Okay, I don't have numbers like Patricia, but I do know people spend a lot of hours playing games. Just from my own experience, I remember when we released the Fast and Furious game while I was at Kabam. I think within the first 3 months, we tallied up how many hours people play this game, and that was like over 1 billion or something crazy. And I'm sure Josh probably, mobile games is just crazy because we've got a gaming computer in our back pocket, all of us, and across the globe, it's just amazing engagement. So I think I think we're going to see the fact that the gaming generation, the Gen Z, if you will, well, it's actually before Gen Z. I think it's just not going to stop. I think the engagement, the numbers, and metrics are going to drive everything else, including ad, right? So it's not going to go backwards; it's just going to go forwards.
That's great. Tara, do you have a perspective on this?
Yeah, I think it's it's a fascinating and it's a great time for especially the consumer, because you continue to enjoy, Walking Dead or The Last of Us, and you can continue to go and play on your phone and enrich that world, or The Office or Trailer Park Boys. You get to continue to be part of that world. And so the audience is truly benefiting. And I think that's why it's absolutely critical, because, Code Coven, we've seen so many people come in, especially and apply, especially in the narrative design. God, my words are failing today. Field, discipline. And it just goes to show that there are so many people out there with stories to tell. And that's why it's super important that we have that representation at that top level and enable people to continue to tell these stories, because the opportunity across media is just phenomenal right now.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about a lot of your experience is that you've gone independent, right? Away from the prior corporate work that you've done before. And Josh, you've done your own company. So what do you think it means, given there's more interest now from the broader media and entertainment community?
So you're right about when we're looking at employing people in the industry, I think it's twofold. One of them is, you talk about Gen Z. I have a 12-year-old. How they play games, how they consume content, how they even view the workforce is going to be something unlike, I can't even comprehend it, because they might be an influencer. They might not work a 9 to 5. They don't really create content that way, but they can really dig in deep. And she's using everything from quick AI to build stuff to building worlds while we're waiting for our hamburgers to come over lunch, and integrating with all these technologies without worrying about guides and all this stuff that seems to be a barrier for people that are like Gen X and that sort of thing. And then what's also interesting about that is, especially in BC, retraining, reskilling, people coming back into the workforce that maybe never thought, I can't work in tech, I can't work in games. That's one of our big pushes that we're doing, that I really believe everyone can work in games. I went to a small country school in Prince George, and they basically said, you're not going to go to university? Okay, well, you can work in a kitchen or you can stack lumber. Here's your two choices that you can do. And then I ended up stumbling my way into tech and been working in tech over 20 years. We need to do a better job in this province of reskilling, especially if we want to look at a more diverse workforce, which is a big challenge for all of our BC companies in tech and in games, to get diversity and not just look at people that are coming out of university to work, because that's just one stream of coming in. With all the tools that are coming into tech now with no code, and I learned a new one that sounds really cool called low code, that you can train people on the job with reskilling, retraining, micro-credentials, whatever fancy name you want to use, to really do these jobs and create authentic experiences for people and to reach millions. So there's never been a time where you can just have a MacBook and a phone, launch it. It's hard to do, but you could get it out to reach millions right away. There's never been a barrier. When I started in games, you'd have the compliance, and you had to know somebody at one of the big console makers to even launch your game. It's not like that anymore.
Wilson, you're nodding your head vigorously. Did you have something to add to that?
No, I'm just agreeing with everything Josh is saying. Yeah, it's never been easier, and Vancouver and I think BC and Canada in general, it's actually pretty privileged place, and we talk about representation and diversity as if it's just it loses meaning. But I think what it really means is that the people that we bring on that work with us, work for us, they come with their own point of views, their own networks from across the globe. Like this concept of third culture, right? Like Vancouver is full of third culture people and third culture talent. So I think it's just we need to harvest that as a new resource, not just lumber and mining anymore. But BC is a pretty privileged place for third culture talent as a resource.
I love that idea of a third culture, and that's why we're so grateful for the space that's been created at this conference to be able to be out there, show people that we've got a lot of talent. And I'm glad you touched on that representation idea too, because again, power. I think that's where it's at, and power needs to be distributed throughout, not just stuck at the tops of the the heads of the companies and so forth. And gaming, just from this conversation, sounds like a place where you can be who you are, that you can create that safe space for yourself if you want to be. So we've got a recent survey that we did for the LGBTQ community, where gamers are 29% more likely to play role-playing games, and more than half are likely to play simulation games. And it's like, it doesn't matter. We don't worry about who's out there. We're going to go out there and play these games because we love it and we can find each other. That's for the LGBTQ community as an example, right? My daughter is a big gamer. At the same time, though, I've seen her coming out of raids crying because she says the moment some guy finds out that she's a girl, they start to troll her. We've had a lot of discussion recently, right, with media being a place where you can be seen, but at the same time, we need to break a lot of biases. What, in your ideal world, do you think the representation in gaming should that look like? Tara, I want to start with you.
Yeah. I think it's great that you bring that up about that safe space, because I think it would be really easy for me to say, right now I think it's, and you probably have more data on this, but 80% white male developers in the world. Less than 2%, I think, of global developers are Black, for example. So it would be really easy for me to say we should be 50-50, have equality and equity across the board. But to also Wilson's point, being able to harvest people's experience, or I don't want to say harvest because that might be harness, that's the one you said. I think if the gaming industry can truly be curious and confident in itself, to be curious about people's lived experiences, wanting to know more about people, and accepting that in order to create that safe space, we'll see more people gravitating towards the industry. It has a long way to come right now with the reputation of how it's treated its marginalized people. And I think that's why we're all doing this work here, to be able to open up those doors. But I think that first step is being curious and welcoming to people's experiences and making space for that.
Great point. Josh, how about for you? An ideal future?
Yeah, I think we need to be a lot better. And, we've been talking about this I've been in games for 12 years. We were talking about it 10 years ago, and it hasn't really improved, to be honest. It's been a lot of talk and no action. So I was really excited when I got asked to come here and speak, and then I immediately asked Tara to come as well. Because programs that are out there, like the Coven, you got to encourage your companies to buy into. That's one such program. There's other programs that are happening for reskilling, retraining, and really looking at, that's how we're going to look at diversity and making our studios and our companies better. Because for a long time, I'm pretty sure everyone works at a company that said, yes, we're going to look for senior talent and we'd love for them to be diverse. It can't be your only strategy. If that's your only strategy, you're setting yourself up to fail. You have to have a good strategy to make safe spaces and work on that. And there's no KPI for it. There's no KPI. Once you sort that out, then you're going to have to work on another vertical and another vertical and another vertical. And it's constant work on there where there's not really there's not really like an end goal you're going to hit. You're going to have to continue to work on it. So that's something that's ongoing, but I do see sort of a light at the end of the tunnel that there's now organizations out there that are working on that you can measure your success in some way, or there's programs where people are getting reskilled and retrained. And then the last bit of that is just content too. We have to be able to make games as well, or the games that you make or the apps that you make have to speak to a wider audience. We'll still have those games. We'll still have those first-person shooters and those type of games, but you're going to start to make games for other segments of people that you're going to have to bring people in for those games to have an authentic experience, and you're going to see more diversity.
How about you, Karina? Given the work that you're doing with your nonprofits.
I love this question.
Yeah.
So we talked about the second life, your virtual life for players and consumers to come in and to embody a different experience from their real life. And I think we're going to see more second lives coming up in the gaming industry, the metaverse. We talk about this all the time, having a second life. So creating that safe space, just to really emphasize the importance of what Tara is saying here, the safe space that needs to come from within. It's always going to be a work in progress. I don't think we'll ever really reach an idyllic state ever. Honestly, there's always going to be work to do. Ideally, we get curious and we make content for the people that we want to attract. There should also be some, community moderation that can help keep those conversations productive and meaningful. And maybe some education even on the community level to make sure that we are embodying that safe space and that we're proving out the future for the next generation who have an entirely different set of expectations when it comes to work-life balance, to how they enjoy entertainment. And we see this in entertainment as it grows and it spans across transmedia, from TV, books, and video games. Like The Witcher is a big thing. But you could see like the kinds of cultures and memes that you develop, that's all within the community. So for developers, yes, it is about hiring the right people, not to fill a quota, but to truly understand how to talk to that community in such a way that we have that safe space, that we have a dialogue going back and forth.
Wilson, over to you.
I think it comes down to hiring. I don't know if it's because my own experience as an immigrant. I like to listen to the quiet ones, the ones who maybe their English skills are not so good, but the how do you find the diamond in the rough? How do you kind of get beyond the language skills and kind of find those people to build your team on. And I think we're doing pretty well. The new company's still relatively small, but because we grew during COVID by necessity, we're a remote company. I think we're at about 33% women. It's small. It's only 20 people, but everybody. I think we represent about 8 or 9 different countries, and so it feels natural to me, and I think we're just going to keep on doing it. And I think with gaming, there's always that kind of I think we like to have. I think we used to believe that you have to have everybody in the studio to kind of work together better. By necessity, we've had to find a different way, and by doing that, we've found that we need to harvest a diverse global workforce. And I think, that's something we're just going to keep on building on. And yeah, how do you find a diamond in the rough? How do you see beyond the language skills, beyond the, not just what they look like, but how do they talk? And it's find those talents that kind of build your company around.
I just wanted to add on to that point, because I think, to your point about remote working, I think the games industry has done better than any other industry, right? We've seen profitability go up year on year, even during the pandemic, because we were able to adapt and work remotely so easily. And I think for a lot of the game developers here, we've all had that slogan of, oh, we're not saving lives, we're just making games. But what if we were to position it as in we are saving lives? Because the pandemic has had the greatest effect on people who are carers, who are typically people who identify as women, who are people of color. They've been impacted the most in terms of income. So if we're able to offer jobs, security, remote work, optional core hours, things like that, then we are able to save lives, because our money, our investment will go on to sustain the future of all of those people. And that's, you can tell I get really worked up talking about this, but I just think our industry is something that everyone can learn from and adapt to. And we will see in talking about finances and brass tacks, there's a McKinsey study that said your profitability will increase by 20% year on year if you have a diverse senior leadership team. Your retention will be higher. So why is all this money being left on the table? And I think, to Josh's point, we just launched this program at Code Coven called Evolve, which sends out a robust survey to employees and employers about their work practices, and we give out an accreditation. And that's part of us saying, it's great that we can offer so many people entry-level jobs into the industry, but what are we doing to make sure that they stay and are working someplace safe that encourages them to bring their best selves to the table? And I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's great. It's a really great point. And while it starts with making sure there's a pipeline, that pipeline's got to grow. And it's about not having that seat at the table and all of us having to make that table bigger so we can accommodate more folks here. Josh, do you have anything to add on this front?
No, I think you both covered it. That's why I invited you. So it's like, there you go.
You work together.
Yeah, what Tara said.
There you go. All right. So one last word from each of you then, given that we've got this great crowd who are either gamers or super interested in gaming. What can we all do to lean in and to help gaming be that epicenter of growth of inclusion for the next many, many years to come? Do you want to start?
First again? Jeez.
Well, I
don't want to sit here anymore. No, I already kind of gave it away. I think it's all about hiring. I personally don't, I think representation is a word that we use maybe a little bit too much. I think, I like the word meritocracy better, but if you actually look at the world where we're going, it is a global market and gaming is a global business. And so if you look at it that way, absolutely, you're gonna hire people from all sorts of backgrounds. So, I think it's from a business standpoint, it's just the smartest thing you can do. So that's the way I would look at diversity hiring.
It's good for business, right? To your point, Tar.
I'd like to see more studios be like Eastside Games and the leadership of Josh in participating in programs like, our Evolve program, and showing that they, whether it's ours or anybody else's, are ready and willing to be accountable. So I think the consumers kind of need to put their voices behind that. And then equally in conferences like this, encourage the organizers to have people of the global majority on panels speaking about their specializations. We're here to talk about the diversity stuff, but we want to encourage all of the other developers out there to be able to talk about their craft. And I'd like to see, well, it comes from all of you asking your organizers to do that.
Yep, powers with the consumers too. So next one, Karina.
I'm going to give you a nice X factor here. So when you are a creative person, creativity is imagination plus technique. And imagination is such a powerful tool. It has the ability to transform your mind. Now imagine if we could review our cultures internally and we could imagine a world where we have equal representation. Our processes are there to help and support and hire the right people who are diverse and can bridge that gap to your consumers. So imagine a culture in the future that is that can embody a diverse and inclusive space.
Here, here. Anything to add, Josh?
Yeah, and to be fair, that email you sent me was the reason I opened it, because it said disrupt the industry, and it was first thing in the morning. I was like, yeah. Fuck yeah, I want to disrupt the industry. let's do it. So send emails like that. But my word is Koichi Toyak. It loosely translates to, and if you know mischief and I just butchered it, let me know afterwards, but I've been working on it for a while. It loosely means we take care of each other. And what it means is it's at these conferences, in your studios, as leaders, with your team, with other teams, to have an understanding about how to be able to ask questions, how to be able to learn. I think we kind of forgot about that along the way, just how to learn, how to ask simple questions on how did you do this, and take care of each other. I think it's a long road ahead. There's no easy win. And I think speaking to other company leaders, other managers, I think a lot of people get frustrated because we come from a very colonized way of learning about that there has to be a very, it's a very, we need to have, how do we finish this? And then how do we get graded on this? It's not about that. It's about making it better, and we'll all rise.
That's fantastic. Paying it forward, right? And I think what I'm hearing from all of us sitting here and from the people who spoke earlier today too is that media, gaming can bring together this trifecta of advocacy, community, and at the end of the day, business too. And when you have all three come together, it's that magic sauce that makes it all happen for everyone. So thank you again to all of you for being a part of this, for your pearls of wisdom, for your amazing experience. And let's give them all a round of applause.